Hello and welcome, Avinash. Why don't you introduce yourself for the guest?
Hey Nathan, thank you for having me in the show. My name is Avinash Upadhyay. I'm a senior product manager in AWS backup team. My job is to listen to customers and then convince my engineering team to build backup solutions that can help our customers centrally automate data protection of their multiple AWS services.
That sounds like the best job. Listen to customers and then
Yeah.
convince people to build what customers want.
Yeah.
So Avinash, what is AWS Backup for S3? Can you tell us a little more about it?
Sure. Today, we are announcing the general availability of AWS Backup for Amazon S3. This launch adds Amazon S3 to the set of supported services in AWS Backup across 20 AWS regions. Before I talk about this launch, let me give an introduction about AWS Backup. AWS Backup is a fully managed, centralized data protection service that allows our customers to centrally automate data protection across multiple AWS services. And today, with this launch, we are making it easy for an application developer or a backup administrator to centrally automate backup and restore of their application data that is stored in S3 alone or that is stored in S3 along with other compute, storage, and database services. So let me give an example. Say you are an application developer. Um, you will be using multiple AWS services to develop and manage your applications. And most application developers also use S3 to store their application data. These customers told us that they want to centrally automate backup and restore of their application data that is stored across multiple services, including S3. Like they did not want to build separate backup solution for every AWS service. And previously, AWS Backup was allowing customers to centrally manage backup and restore of 11 different services. In reInvent 2021, we announced a preview of the capability to automate S3 backups using AWS backups. We announced this preview in US West region or Oregon region. We got tremendous response from S3 customers. And in the last 2 months, we have received requests from more than 200 customers who wanted to participate in the preview. So today, 30 minutes back, actually, we made this launch generally available across 20 different AWS regions.
That's awesome. What are customers saying about it? How has it been received?
Yeah, customers were eagerly looking forward to this launch. More than 200 customers participated in the preview. Customers were very happy with the feature. They no longer need to manage their S3 backup separately. They can manage S3 backup along with other AWS resources that they are using for their application data. Customers also love the capability to restore the S3 backups to a point in time in the past. So AWS Backup has the capability to continuously create incremental backups of your S3 data, and customers can use that backup to restore it to any specified point in time in the last 35 days. And customers have given us a lot of positive feedback about this capability.
Okay, that's really interesting because when I think about backup for S3, in general, I really trust S3 to hold my data. I don't have any doubts that like the Amazon S3 is going to forget about one of my objects I put into S3. I have stuff I put in S3, you know, at this point probably nearly 10 years ago, and it's still in there, right? I feel like I put it into S3, it's going to be there forever. But one of the things that I have noticed is, and I've done this before in the past, I write a script or something that interacts with S3, and then my script actually messes up or corrupts some data by overwriting something that I had previously written to S3. So when you say point in time backup, I'm assuming that means it's going to allow me to essentially control Z and undo some of those mistakes that my code might have made.
Yes, you can in one way that is correct. So you can create two types of backup. One is continuous backup, one is periodic backups. The continuous backups are created continuously, and they can be restored to any point in time in the past 35 days, and you can specify the point in time during restore. The periodic backups are created by a frequency that you specify in AWS backup, and the periodic backups can be retained for as long as you want. So they help you to meet your long-term data retention needs.
Wow. Okay, so can you show us a demo of what this looks like?
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen.
Also, while you're bringing that up, I'm curious, as a content management person, does it just back up the object, or does it back up the metadata as well? What exactly, how deep are you going?
Yeah, we back up the S3 buckets, the objects, including the object data, the object tags, and access control lists. And we also back up some of the user-defined metadata.
Oh, awesome. Sorry, back to the demo, guys. I was curious.
Yeah,
No,
sure.
that's a really good question. Because the last thing I want to do is lose the metadata associated with an object that I had uploaded.
That's what us content people like to hear.
So this is my AWS screen. I'll start the demo. If you're using AWS backup for the first time, you click on services, you go to storage, and this is where you will find AWS backup. This is the AWS backup home screen. If you are using S3 backup for the first time, you need to go to settings. So in settings, you will see the list of AWS services that AWS backup supports. And outside AWS, we also support backup for virtual machine VMwares. So when you are using it for the first time, you click on configure resources, and then you click on this toggle button to enable S3. Like, I have been using this feature for some time, so it's already enabled in my screens, but as a first time user, you need to enable it and click on confirm. And then S3 backups are enabled in your screen. You can start creating backup. Now to specify the parameters such as backup frequency, backup window, etc., you need to create a backup plan. So to do that, you click on backup plan on the left-hand pane. So I already have some backup plans that are running on my screen, but I'll show how to create a backup plan. I'll go to create backup plan. You can create a backup plan using 3 different methods. You can use some of the standard templates that we already provide. You can also define a backup plan using a JSON expression, or you can use our console to build a backup plan. I'll use the console. You need to give a name to the backup plan. Let me call it AWS backup demo. Generally, our customers name their backup plan based on their organizational best practices. You also need to give a name to the rule that you are creating. I'll call it S3 backup demo. And then you specify the backup vault where you want your backups to be stored. So a backup vault is an encrypted storage location owned by AWS backup.
So I just want to interrupt for a quick, because there was a customer comment that came in, which I think is relevant. John B is asking, in which service will be saved the backup? And so here you're saying the backup's going to be saved in what we're calling a vault.
Yes, that is correct.
So it's not, this isn't being stored inside of S3. It's not being stored inside a specific AWS service. This is something we're internally calling the vault, basically.
Yeah, the backup vault is an infrastructure that is owned by AWS backup. It has many logical layers of abstractions in it to ensure that the backups are protected with utmost security. And the customers, one can encrypt the backup vault with a customer managed key or by using an Amazon provided KMS key. And all the backups that are stored in that backup vault will also be encrypted with that encryption key. And whenever they want to access the actual data, they can restore the backup from the backup vault with a few simple clicks, which I will demonstrate today.
All right, let's see.
So while creating your backup plan, you can select which backup vault you want these backups to be stored in. So every AWS region in every AWS account has a default backup vault. But if you want, you can create some other backup vaults also by clicking on the create a backup vault option. Right now, I'll use my default vault. And then you can specify your backup frequency for your periodic backups, whether you want to create your backup every hour or every 12 hours or in every day, every week, etc. So these are some of the frequencies you can specify for your periodic backups. You can also select the option to create continuous backups by clicking on this radio button. Right now, AWS Backup supports continuous backup for RDS and S3.
So one question about this continuous backup, we have another viewer question that came through. Does AWS Backup for S3 implicitly enable versioning? I think some folks are curious whether this continuous backup is basically turning versioning on behind the scenes. Is it related to versioning, or is it its own thing for continuous backups?
Yeah, it is not related to versioning. It's a new proprietary technology developed by AWS Backup. So we use our own technology to continuously identify incremental changes. But to the question that is asked, AWS recommends versioning as a best practice for all S3 users. So we have also kept versioning as a prerequisite for AWS Backup. So you need to enable versioning first to create a backup. And so for that, you need to go to your S3 console or use the S3 CLIs to enable versioning, and then you can start creating your S3 backups.
Hey, quick question. Is there any limitation on number of objects, sizes, size of bucket?
Yeah, sure. So right now we have kept a limitation of 1 petabyte S3 bucket or 24 million S3 objects for creating a backup. So customers who have S3 buckets larger than 1 petabyte or who have objects more than 24 million objects in one single bucket, they can reach out to AWS support and we can evaluate their request on a case-by-case basis. So these
Awesome.
are soft limitations that we have placed in our system, but customers are welcome to reach out to us for exceptions.
We got another user question coming through. How does incremental changes get identified? Does the backup check for file sizes for binary files? Like, how is it picking up that a file has actually changed?
Yeah, great question. So we use an event-driven technology in the backend. So it's continuously tracking. So this event-driven technology is continuously tracking for incremental changes. That's how it works. And this is the technology that we developed for this feature. Any other questions, or shall I move forward?
No, carry on with the demo.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. These are great questions. Appreciate it. So then you can also specify your backup window, like at what time do you want your backup to start? Your default backup window is 5 a.m. Universal Time, but you can click on Customize Backup Window and you can select a different backup window also. And then later on, you'll have the capability to copy your S3 backups to other AWS regions. So right now, we don't have this capability. And in future, when we have the cross-region copy capability, you can just turn it on here using a backup plan also. And once you have specified all the settings, you just need to create a backup plan and you are all set. So right now, I'll not create a backup plan because I have 2 backup plans running on my system. So once I create a backup plan, my next step is to assign my S3 buckets to that backup plan. So I'll go use my existing backup plan. And once I click on the backup plan, there is this section called Assign Resources. So I'll click on Assign Resources. We have a very simple resource assignment console. You just need to specify which resources, AWS resources, you want to assign to this backup plan. You need to give it a name. You need to select the IAM role that you want to use to assign your resources. And then AWS Backup will ask you if you want to assign all your AWS resources to this backup plan, or do you want to assign specific resources? I'll assign only my S3 resources. So I'll click on Include Specific Resource Types. And then it will show me the drop down where all my AWS resources are listed. It will ask me which AWS resource do I want to assign. I want to assign only S3 right now. But if you want, you can assign multiple AWS resources to the same backup plan at the same time.
We have a lot of good questions coming through right now. I've got one from Derek.
Sure.
About how long the backups can be stored for.
Yeah, so the continuous backups are stored for 35 days, while the periodic backups can be stored for as long as you want. In your backup plan, you can specify the backup retention period. You can store the periodic backups for 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, or for an infinite period of time.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to assign my S3 resources. So when I select S3, it will give me, in the dropdown, it will show me all the S3 buckets that I have in that particular region. So I'll select this S3 bucket that I have. And then I need to click on assign resources. So one question that you might have is that, what if you have hundreds or thousands of S3 buckets? Do you need to manually go and assign every S3 bucket? The answer is no. So you can use tags for that. You can tag your S3 buckets using a key value pair, and you can use the same tag in your backup plan. AWS Backup will automatically identify the S3 buckets with matching tags, and those S3 buckets will be automatically assigned to the backup plan. All you need to do is to specify the tag here. So that is another way of assigning your AWS resources, including S3, to the backup plan. So now I'll click on assign resources, and I am all set. AWS Backup will automatically start creating my backups based on the frequency that I have defined in my backup plan.
Okay, so very important question that just came in from the customer. Okay, your backup plan set up, it's operating on your bucket, but with this backup going on in the background, am I going to notice any performance impact? Am I going to see like maybe slower put objects to S3, slower get objects? Am I going to notice this all, or should it just be all magically happening behind the scenes?
No, there will be no performance impact.
That's awesome. S3 is going to continue to be super scaled, answering all these queries for me. We'll upload all these objects as fast as I want and not see any impact from the backups.
Yes, correct. Now, once your backups are getting created, you can see the backups in multiple locations. Like you can use our dashboard to see how many backup jobs are in progress, how many backup jobs are completed, how many backup jobs have failed. You can go to the backup vault. This is the location where backups are stored. If I open my default backup vault, I'll see that I have 40 resources in this backup vault. I have a lot of S3 buckets, and I have one EBS snapshot in this backup vault. So you can monitor your backups in your backup vault. You can also go to protected resources to see which AWS resources are getting protected using AWS backup. So right now I'm protecting a few EC2 instances, a few EBS snapshots, a few EFS file systems, and 2 S3 buckets, and 1 DocumentDB cluster using my backup plan. Now I will show how to restore the backup. Say I want to restore backups of this S3 bucket. When I go to protected resources, it will show me all the AWS resources I'm protecting. I'll click on this protected resource. So for this particular bucket, I have this many backup copies getting created already. Like one of them is a continuous backup, the others are periodic backup. I'll show you how to restore the continuous backup. The restore process is same for continuous backup and periodic backups. The only difference is that in continuous backups, you can specify the point in time to which you want to restore. So let me click on this backup, and then I click on the restore button here. So this is my restore screen. It's a very simple experience. You can go and restore your S3 backup with a few simple clicks, and AWS Backup also allows you to customize some parameters during restore. For example, it will ask me what is the point in time to which I want to restore. I can say I want to restore it to the latest restorable time, or I can specify the exact date and time to which I want to restore. Let me specify a date. And it will also ask me if I want to restore the entire S3 bucket or if I want to restore individual S3 objects. So to restore individual S3 objects, you need to specify the S3 URI of that S3 object. And then you can restore individual objects that are there in the backup plan, in the S3 bucket. So here, let me restore the entire bucket. It will also ask me for the restore destination, like do I want to restore it to the source bucket from where I created the backup, or do I want to restore it to another existing bucket? It will also give me the option to create a new bucket during restore. Right now, let me restore it to the source bucket. It will also give me the option to change the encryption key of the restore bucket or object. Like I can use my original encryption key that was there in the source bucket or object, or I can use a new encryption key, or I can use an Amazon S3 encryption key or an AWS KMS key. So these are some of the advanced settings that you can customize during restore. But if you don't want to customize any settings, you can just keep everything as default and click on restore backup. And you are all set. You will receive this notification saying that your restore is in progress. You can go to your dashboard and you can monitor your restore job. It says that your restore is in progress. And after some time, when your restore is completed, you will see in your dashboard that the restore is complete. So this is the demo from my side.
Hey, Avinash, I have a really great question here from a LinkedIn user as well. Let me bring it up for us. Why was there a need for AWS backups when S3 has the availability of 99.99%?
Yeah, so the need, as I said in the beginning, is to centralize and automate the backup experience across AWS resources, including S3. If you are an application developer, you will be using multiple AWS resources to build your applications, to manage your applications. Customers told us that they need one centralized way to automate backups of all AWS services, including S3. That is one of the reasons why we launched it. Secondly, it is the point-in-time restore capability. A lot of customers asked us for point-in-time restore capability also. And thirdly, in future, we'll be providing you advanced features in AWS Backup to monitor the compliance of your S3 backups. And you will also be able to use in future a feature called AWS Backup Audit Manager to monitor and demonstrate backup compliance of your S3 backups. So these are some of the reasons why this feature was launched.
I just want to say, as a customer of S3, who I've used S3 before in the past with like uploading content for a social media application, and we had to process that content periodically. So we had like a Lambda hook that went in and would like resize images so they'd be the right size for delivery to mobile applications. And with these types of code, sometimes your code will go wrong and will actually corrupt or mess up some files, potentially. Or maybe the code gets stuck in an endless loop and creates a bunch of files, bogus content. So that point in time backup is not because you don't trust S3 to store your data, because like you said, we trust S3 has high availability. It's going to retain that data and it's not going to lose it. But what I don't trust is my own code that interacts with S3, and my own code could be messing up the contents of that bucket. But now I have a point in time transfer backup that I can transfer back to and say, take me back to how things were 30 minutes ago before I ran this horrible code that messed up my S3 bucket. Another
Sorry,
question.
I had one more. I think we're looking at the same one here. Nathan, let me grab it. I had this question. What are the restore timing trends like? How much time does it take for different sizes?
Yeah, so right now we are not providing a general restore time. So the restore time is a combination of many factors. It depends on the size of your S3 bucket. It depends on the number of objects that are there in your S3 bucket. It also depends on the AWS region you are operating, the networking, the power in that AWS region. So if you want to know what is the estimated restore time for your S3 bucket, you can reach out to us through AWS support. Please let us know the size of your S3 bucket, the number of objects in your S3 bucket, and the AWS region where you are operating, and we can do some estimations and get back to you.
Awesome. And I'm seeing some questions coming through about pricing model, cost of storage, cost for restoring. Can you give us any information on that?
Yeah, the pricing is available in our public pricing page. So we charge on 3 dimensions primarily. First is the price of warm backup storage. Secondly, in future, when we have cross-region copy available, there will be a cross-region bandwidth charge. And thirdly, there is a restore charge. These are the 3 primary pricing dimensions. In addition to that, customer will see a minimal charge of S3 GET APIs and Event Bridge. It will be a very small fraction of the total charge. And if you go to our pricing page, we have shown the calculations on how the pricing breakdown will look like.
And I know something you just said there actually answers a question that just popped up. Can you perform AWS backups across region? And you said it sounded like you're hinting that will become available, right?
Yeah, it is in our roadmap. We'll launch it sometime later in the year, but right now you can't do cross-region copy.
So not currently, but coming down the line.
Yeah, it's coming down the line.
Another question that came through is, we talked about the metadata backup, the content. Is there anything that's not in the backup that's excluded that we should be aware of?
Yeah, so there are some metadata that we don't restore, although we back up those metadata. These are original creation date, E tags, and version ID. These are the 3 metadata that can't be restored.
Okay, and I think we had discussed this before when we talked about this launch, but the bucket level properties also aren't going to be restored,
Yes.
right? We're restoring the content inside the bucket, but if you had set up, like, for example, static website hosting or something on the bucket, that's not going to be necessarily included in the backup, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, that is correct. The bucket policies and other will also not be backed up or restored because those are bucket level settings.
That makes total sense. So unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I want to give you a chance. If there's anything else you want to tell folks on the stream about this launch.
Yeah, we would like our customers and our users to use this feature and provide us with as much feedback as you can. Your feedback will help us to drive the product roadmap and make improvements in the product. So I'll be looking forward to receiving feedback from all our viewers. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Avinash.